6 o'clock. I'm going to make a start. Just have to read the script out. Good evening. Thank you all for attending this meeting of the Social Care and Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The committee is meeting this evening in person in the in the town hall with appropriate social distancing requirements. It will be conducted by use the hybrid meeting system to enable it to be streamed on YouTube. The agenda and report for this meeting are available on the council website. Way of show of hands, I will report if the vote has been carried, and this will be recorded within minutes. To proceed and confirm we have a quorum, I will introduce myself and call each committee member in attendance one by one to introduce themselves and to confirm they can see and hear the proceedings. My name is Councillor Hussain. I'm chairing the meeting today. I can hear and see. Councillor Cooper.
Councillor Sarah Jane Cooper. I can see and hear, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coughlin.
I can see and hear, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ditto.
I can see and hear, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gandam.
I can see and hear. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Murphy.
I can see and hear. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rassab is not here. We got Councillor Samra substituting for Councillor Johal.
Good evening, Chair. I can see and hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sears is here for Councillor Vidawater, which is substituting.
I can see and hear.
Thank you. And that's it. And there's portfolio holders here. Councillor Keir Pedley.
Good evening, Chair. Councillor Keir Pedley, Portfolio Holder, Adult Social Care. I can see and hear.
And we've got Councillor Craddock on online Teams.
Hello, Chair. I can see and hear, and I have a declaration when you come to that section.
Okay, and I can see Gary, he's here kindly.
Thank you, Chair. Consent here, Deputy Leader, Resilient Communities.
Thank you, Gary. And we also have got Garen Griffithsdale from Walsall, Managing Director for Black Country and West Birmingham.
Good evening, Chair. I can see and hear you.
Thank you. We've got Kerry Oud, our Executive Director.
Good evening, Chair. Kerry Oud, Executive Director for Adult Social Care. I can see and hear.
Thank you. And we also got guests from the community. Jan Davis, she's Chair of Walsall Community Network.
I can see and hear. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Elena Boycott from Blockridge Community Partnerships.
Hello. Yes, I can see and hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Evans.
Hello. Yes, I can see and hear. Thank you.
Thank you. And Surya Ajaz.
Hello. Yes, I can see and hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Starting off with the agenda, I've got apologies, like I said, for Councillor Johal, Councillor Robertson, and Councillor Rita Waters. And we've got substitutions for them two councillors, and Councillor Sears and Councillor Samra substituting. Any declarations of interest on any items?
Chair. I'm Chair of Brown Hills Community Association, and Jan Davis is my centre manager at the centre. I have no financial interest in the centre at all.
Thank you. I'm sure that's been noted by Democratic. Thank you. Any other? Yeah,
Chair, to echo Councillor Craddock, I'm also Chair of Pelsall Community Association with no financial interest.
Thank you. That's been noted. Any other interest from members?
Yeah, I'm Chair of Willenhall Charter and I've got no financial interests.
Thank you. That's been noted as well. Any further interest?
Chair, one of your speakers has got her microphone on and the camera's permanently on the good young lady that's sitting at the end, and I've forgotten her name. I apologise. That's it.
Thank you. That's been sorted out. Thank you. Any further interest before I move on to the next item? No, that's all been noted. Thank you. There's nothing from the local government access. So moving on to minutes of the next meeting, I'll give you a minute to have a look at that. And we need a mover and seconder and a show of hands. Are everybody happy with the minutes who were present at the last meeting? I'm happy to move the minutes. Second by Councillor Ditta. All in favour? Thank you. I'm going to be taking item number 7 because we've got guests from the community here, and I'll be taking that before the primary access agenda item. So I'm going to be handing over to Paul Gordon to start us off on this. And we've got Sarah Oakley. And it's your discretion, Paul. How do you want to manage this with your community members? I'm happy once you've given your presentation, if each member wants to give a brief introduction of their relevant organizations, and then we can open it up to the members.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Firstly, I just want to introduce Diane as well from Old Hall People's Partnership and Gail from Manor Farm, who are in addition to the team here today.
Thank you.
Scrutiny asked for a paper following a previous conversation at Scrutiny regarding a positive impact on adult social care of the interventions of the Resilient Communities model. And what we thought was the best way of dealing with that is for you to speak to the people on our front line, and hopefully the people that are considered as a front door for people with various issues around isolation, around loneliness, just care and support. And there is a theme, Councillor. I think we turn people who are lonely, who are often not in the happiest position, into people who have things that they can do that they choose in their communities, and also a lot of the things that go on here are good fun. And I think that's one of the key things for me, is that in our organisations that are represented here tonight and the wider group, people come in, they get company, they have fun, and they go away in a better spirit, which hopefully keeps them well longer and keeps them safe longer. It's about this group. However, there are some key bits of infrastructure that I think is in place, which has enabled that to happen. So Making Connection Walsall is our social prescribing model, which is a key piece of infrastructure. It was built by Public Health, and then we used it during the COVID pandemic to great effect. And we've already stress tested it, and therefore I've got no hesitation in recommending it as a piece of infrastructure that is strong, reliable and scalable, which is what we need to support adult social care. I'll talk very briefly about the Walsall Community Network, which is again a group of organisations split across the borough with a wide coverage, with their own networks of local contacts and organisations, which gives us a great deal of coverage in the area. Speak a little bit about Walsall for All. Walsall for All has been subject to some academic research which shows that it's helped to build the social capital within Walsall. So the investments that it's made has led to direct increases in social capital. And of course, we've got an infrastructure organisation, One Walsall, who are here to support the sector, and in particular elements of the sector that are new and need support and development. What we have today is some mature organisations who have now come together in the collaboration model under Walsall Community Network. And if I can, I'll just hand over to Jan to talk a little bit about the network.
Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you very much, everybody, for inviting us. I'm sure you've heard over the last couple of years throughout the pandemic about Walsall Community Network and what the network has done to help local residents. I'm coming from a point of view, I just want to enlighten you as to some of the other things the Walsall Community Network has provided and is working towards. My other colleagues will talk particularly about the Making Connections Walsall and the work that they've been doing. But the Walsall Community Network has really progressed over the last couple of years. We've all come together as a group and we work together as a real team. We all have certain quality standards that we like to adhere to. So we all are dementia friendly. We're all disability confident. We all, more or less, I won't say all, but nearly all of our centres have the mental health first aid. And we will all be safe places from the end of March. I think that shows in itself the amount of commitment that the Walsall Community Network is showing by pulling together to do these things together. We've got partners that are sitting on various boards at the moment. We've got people representing the Economic Board, the Town Centre at Bloxwich, Walsall Town Centre Partnership and the Walsall Together Board. Capacity. Do we have capacity to do more? Yes, we do. We're always willing to do more. Sometimes it's just about the infrastructure and, excuse me, about the core funding to support the projects that we do. We were successful in the COVID lockdown to get a lottery bid, and that has helped us tremendously to help our residents. Moving forward, we then applied for a lottery bid, and we were, sorry, I think I've just said that, we were successful with that. Then we had some money through council to enable us to continue our resetting model. The resetting model has helped us to be more diverse in what we do. So, for example, at one time, I feel a community, and I've worked in community for 25 years, that a community brought people together to do basically preventative well-being. And we did things like the yoga and the short mat bowls and art classes. But I do feel the community organisations now have really diversified their role. We now deal with people with mental health issues, we deal with bereavement, we deal with, we've been dealing with the Housing Support Fund, and the amount of people that have come forward to get that support has been phenomenal, really. And I think it's allowed us to really see the people who are lonely and isolated. We always talked at one time about loneliness and isolation. And I always questioned, how did we actually get to those people? But I actually think through lockdown, it's enabled us to do that because people have referred people over to us. So as the chair of the Walsall Community Network, I'm really proud of the amount of work that has gone on. Moving forward, we are going to be looking at further lottery bids to try and support the Walsall Community Network. Moving forward as well, some of the, I don't want to say smaller organisations, but we do have some larger organisations within the network. When we feel some of the smaller organisations need a bit more governance, so we're going to be working with those smaller organisations to bring them through so that there is a follow-on for them. So that's what we'll be looking forward to do moving forward. But I do have to say that a lot of this has come about by trust and relationships. And I have to say that the relationship has grown more and more with Councillor Perry, Paul and Sarah. And, you know, it's by working together in a team that has allowed us to progress this far. So I'd just like to say thank you for that and being given the opportunity for our networks to move forward and support our residents who are in real need at this moment in time. If there are any questions, what I'm going to say before I hand over to my colleagues.
I'm happy for members to ask any questions, or we can carry on as you like, Paul, and pursue that way.
Yeah, it's entirely up to the committee how they want to operate it. I'll keep going until you interrupt me. So, I think
any questions? Yeah, there's two members. One, Councillor Samra and Councillor Dita.
Thank you, Jan. And can I just say on behalf of the committee, a big thank you for all the work that you guys have done through the pandemic. Thank you very much. Moving forward, you talk a lot about lottery funding, but putting funding to one side and all the things you've established, obviously, throughout the pandemic, how would you like to build on that, please?
I think what we need to do is support some of the smaller organisations so that the partnership gets wider and that there's more residents that are supported. I mean, we are across the 4 localities. But yes, some organisations are probably in a healthier situation than others. And what we would like to do is try and help those move forward. So it's all about the progression of these smaller organisations to me and how we move them forward. To me, I don't think lottery bids are always the answer. But we do give a lot of our time to support smaller organisations within the group. So.
Can I just come back on that, Chair? So you're talking about good practice there, and where it worked well in the pandemic, it worked very well. and there were some areas in some of the localities where we could have worked better. So just on that good practice, how do you, as a group, are you going to expand on that? And I appreciate it's not going to be a quick fix to this. It's going to take some time, but if you could just sort of guide some of the members of the committee on how we're sort of going to break into some of those areas where we've always found it very difficult.
Well, like I say, I do think it's working in partnership and making sure that those areas that are probably not getting through to their residents, we need to be working more with them. So it is about good practice, spreading that good practice across the whole of the borough. And I think that's what we really need to be looking at. We have been held up in what we've wanted to do in some ways because of the pandemic. So although it's allowed us to move forward in some ways, we have been held back by progressing some of the people forward. But to me, that's the way forward. And with the support of everybody else, the more you work as a partnership, the better you are, the more you can do. And, so to me, it works. We've shown by the 15 community organisations that we already have. So to work with further organisations can only be a bonus, and sharing that best practice. Why reinvent the wheel?
Thank you. I think Paul wants to come in. Paul?
So it's a very good point, Councillor. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is coverage of areas where there perhaps hasn't been previously organisations. And Soraya here will talk later about the work that she's doing in the Birchall's area. Because absolutely you're right, we need to make sure that new organisations, and Soraya's is a new organisation to Walsall, are supported and developed.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Dita, then what I'm going to do, if each member from the community can give a brief intro, then we'll take questions at the end. It'll be easier instead of doing this way. So Councillor Dita, then I would like the other members to have a bit of an intro of their organisation, and then members can give their input, and I'll bring the portfolio holders in as well.
Councillor Samra asked my question about communities where it's been harder to reach.
Whichever organisation, I don't mind in order, that would like to give a brief intro of what they do and what kind of work they do, and then we're going to open it up then. Is that okay?
Hello, I think I'm next. I just want to check. We have got a couple of videos, so I'm not sure when we're going to show those. Or do you know when the videos are on? So these are just a couple of videos that we shot during the pandemic in the main, which gives you a bit of a flavour for the work that we've done.
And today I will be replacing Peter Harwich, that unfortunately cannot be with us today. So we organize this kind of webinars every
It is a killer, there's no doubt about it, it's a killer. When I lost Doreen after 63 years of marriage, I don't know, it's like a curtain comes down. I thought, well, what am I going to do with myself now? I never said goodbye to it. And prior to that, we'd lost Lynn. You think to yourself, well, what else can happen to me? I can talk about it now. When they say, well, it's at peace now, that don't excuse the fact that she's not there with you. How can you not miss somebody that's been there every day of your life, 63 years? And that loneliness, it is a killer, there's no doubt about it, it's a killer to people. And I've experienced this, and it will overtake you if you let it. Clock watching all the while. You shut the door, you close the curtains of the window, and then you're thinking, you're wishing your life away. I wish it was tomorrow. I wish it was next week. And I've thought about it. I wonder how many people out there that are in exactly the same boat as I'm on. And I felt upset with myself to the fact that I can get up and walk about. Why am I feeling like this?
Hello?
Hello, Kat?
Oh, hello, Ron.
Oh, you all right?
Yes, not too bad.
Oh, God, you sound a bit better. Is everything okay? I've got 16 people now. 10 o'clock in the morning, I can phone Reg. 2 o'clock on the afternoon, I can phone Brian at the home. I never thought that I would do this, never in a million years, but I'm thankful I've done it now. And you can talk forever, and you've just met them, you know, and then they look around and they say, blooming hell, that time's gone quick. We're not strangers now, we're all friends. You know, oh, it's Ron, it's all right, love, it's Ron, my mate. When you get on the phone, you know, you think to yourself, well, that's okay, that is. It is a wonderful feeling, there's no doubt about it. I hope it lasts a lot longer.
Is that it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really don't know how to follow that because I think that says what we do better than anything that I could sit here and say. My name's Eleanor Boycott. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Bloxwich Community Partnership and I've worked there for 20 plus years. We're based in Bloxwich, which is obviously in the north of Walsall, with a history of sort of coming up to 45 years in operation. And our success really is down to the diversifying what we offer. You know, we're certainly not offering what we offered 40 years ago as a community association, and we're really not offering what we were 2 years ago now. So we are really good at responding to the needs of our changing community. And I think that's the strength with communities, is that our feet are on the ground and we are able to respond really quickly. I've been asked to talk a little bit about COVID and how we moved forward during that period of time. On the 23rd of March, when the country went into national lockdown, you know, people shut the door, people stayed at home, people were instructed to work at home. We all went to work and we went to work every day and every day since then. Lots of centres closed. We kept our doors open so we could support the people we were working with. We didn't do what we usually did. Our services changed on that day. And within, I would say, 2 days, we got a shopping delivery service set up. We'd got one person working for Making Connections. So we are the hub for the north of Walsall, I should have said that. So prior to COVID, we were successfully running with one person on Making Connections, supporting lonely and isolated people. Overnight, things changed and people needed us and our local community needed us. So we stepped up. We brought many of our staff that worked in different areas of the charity into the centre to help us, and we got at our peak 20 to 30 staff and volunteers and local people working with us. We set up food delivery, Originally, it was a few of us trying to get into Asda in all those queues, trying to get what food we could. We very quickly made relationships with supermarkets to try and get some priority access and in through the back door. We worked with Walsall Community Transport, who were out and about driving and fetching and carrying for us. And we also worked with Walsall Housing Group, who did some deliveries for us. People's immediate needs in March the 23rd were what on earth's going to happen. And I can recall having conversations with some of our partners around the table saying, oh, we can do this. It's only going to be a couple of weeks and, you know, we'll be all right. And 2 years later, we're here still working with people and still supporting our community. So the immediate need was food, was access to medication. So we quickly filled that gap. Then what we found was people actually needed to talk to us. People needed somewhere to ring to say, what's going on? What can I do? What can't I do? You know, I normally go out. I've got nobody. I don't see people. So those befriending calls really took off, and we started making telephone befriending calls to people, just giving them some reassurance about things are okay. We're here to talk to you. We're here to support you. Ring us at any time. And I know all our partners did the same as well. We were asked to take on behalf of the council, contacting those people that were CEV or shielded to make sure they had what they needed. And I was asked by Paul to make something like 100 phone calls. And the next day I phoned him to say, right, we've done that. And he's, well, how have you done that quick? And it's because we've got people there who want to support their community. So we got on the phone, we got on mobile phones, and we made it happen. And we made it happen really, really quickly. And the strengths with the voluntary sector is that we can move quickly. You know, we are, let's get down, get things done. Let's all roll our sleeves up and make things happen. So as we sort of settled into a bit of the pandemic and watching that video was shot at our centre, which was the Istanbul Centre. I was looking back thinking, oh, we've not got masks on and we've not got posters on the wall. And it just shows how things changed that pandemic really quickly and how we had to move forward really quickly to keep up. So we were at the forefront of those changes. So we were also supporting other groups outside of the community groups on what they can and what they can't do. Myself personally, I became COVID officer for the local football club because they wanted to operate but didn't know what to do. And the FA required them to have somebody to support them. So we step up and we do that. We supported schools and nursery schools, and I know my colleagues have supported other smaller groups within the community as well. So once we got into a bit of a, you know, this is what's going to happen and things won't get back to normal straight away, the initial need for food became less because the rest of the world really caught up with us. Shopping services improved and more home delivery improved. So that need decreased slightly. But what we found was that need for the befriending and those welfare calls really did increase. So we then started putting wellbeing packs together. So we did packs together for elderly people with books and colouring books and some activities and some things they could do at home. We worked with schools that were working with children who were still in education because their parents were key workers, to do some craft activities, to write messages and notes to lonely and isolated people and share those. So they were popped in the boxes and sent out to people. And people were ringing and saying, that's just brought a smile to me. You know, no one's really thought about me. We've delivered flowers, and I've had a lady phone me to say, I've never been given flowers before, and why are they for me? And it's saying, because you're part of our community and you are important, and we want to do that for you to make your life a little bit better. So we did all of those things. Wellbeing packs, we deliver Christmas trees. We delivered 250 Christmas trees during the first lockdown because we were in tier 4 at that point. So essentially we were back into lockdown. So we took Christmas trees out to people. We took Christmas dinners out to people. And what we wanted to get the message across to our community is that we're here to support you. Whatever your needs are, we're here to support you. And Jan's right when she says, as community organisations, we always did that nice stuff. We did activities, we did coffee mornings, and we still will do all of those. But we were very much on the periphery of that support. And what the pandemic's enabled us to do, and the Making Connections structure, is really get stuck in and support our community without the boundaries of being you're my person or your person and you can't go to that centre and go to that centre. Those barriers have really been broken down and we've worked in partnership. I mean, we all speak to each other fairly frequently now, and share good practice and share those things that are going on. And previously to the pandemic, I think we possibly did work a little bit in competition with each other. You know, this is my area and these are my people and this is what I do. But actually that sharing is much wider now. And that's actually for the benefit of the community, but also for the benefit of us of organisations, because we can do a lot more. So we've moved on and obviously centres have begun to reopen. We've done some resetting and we've reopened very gently. At our centre at the Istanbul Centre, we run daily coffee mornings. We started at a social distance with a very, very small group of 6 because these people were very, very anxious about coming out, very unsure, hadn't really been out. And over time, that's grown. Friendships have been built. People have, you know, made real connections with people, which is absolutely amazing to see. So that provision has grown and grown and grown. But we still have those people that need support more than ever. And now the message is out there that go to your local community centre, that is happening, and local people are coming to us. As you know, we manage, so we've got some crisis support fund money. And I've dealt with that today pretty well all day. And some of those stories that come through are heartbreaking. But we are able to say to people, we can get you a food parcel out today. It'll be with you within the next hour. We can meet you at your local shop and get your gas and electricity topped up so you've got some heat and light when your children come home from school. We can provide you with a bed because you're sleeping on the floor because there's nowhere else for you and your children to sleep. And I think that's all down to the strength that we've got with understanding our communities. And we're not all the same, we are all very different, but we're all there for the communities that we work in. And it works because we are in our communities dealing with our own people. So we should be spread across the borough and it should be several people being part of it, not just one organisation trying to deliver everything to everybody, because that can't happen. We've all got different needs and our communities have got different needs. But what we do have is the skills and the ability to be able to be fluid and to move as quick as we need to move.
Thank you.
That's all from me.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think my colleagues may want to.
That's a lot.
Copy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on to Susan Evans from Manor Farm Community Association. Just if you can sort of outline in a few minutes what your organisation does, and take it from there. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for the invite. So I know our colleagues have covered a lot. We're the East Hub for Making Connections Walsall, and everything that Eleanor's just said is what Manor Farm has been part of as the East Hub. What I just wanted to add in really was the fact that we are really competent in giving good information, advice and guidance to our community, and we are really we're always sharing information. And I think because we're at the heart of our community, when you've got a message to give out, we can give that message out to our residents, and that just works really well. In terms of the quality of our work, when we looked to set up a bereavement help point, we contacted St Giles and we asked for some advice about how we can best do that. We also go through the Matrix quality standard, and that Matrix award is an external moderation of information, advice and guidance services. So they're sort of giving us that stamp of approval that, you know, what we're doing is good and correct. For our volunteers, we all, you know, utilise volunteering, but we went through investors in volunteers just to make sure that all of our systems are of a high quality, so that when we're working with our volunteers, we're doing the best by them. You know, and throughout COVID, volunteering was absolutely massive. People stepped forward and helped support their community, whether they were on furlough, you know, or they were unemployed at the time and they were looking for some work experience. That sort of came through at that time. I think the world has changed and our centres definitely have changed. We are working together better than we've ever done before. I think we work with the council better than we ever have done before. Us as organisations, it's not about Manor Farm, it's about us working together. And our networks are further reaching than you know, the network itself. You know, we've got sort of kids football groups that attend our centre. We work with the NISA locally, we work with Morrison's, and that during COVID, that sort of collaboration work that came through, you know, that's carrying on now. We've got those contacts. We also deal with a lot of people now with complex issues. So, you know, we've got contacts with Mind, talking therapies, so that we can deal with people as they come through the door. Yeah, and I think that's it from me.
Thank you. That was Susan from Manor Farm Community Association. Can I have Suri Ijaz from Mindkind to give a brief intro?
Hello everyone, thank you for the opportunity today. So I think we're probably the newest organisation sat here this evening. Mindkind is a wellbeing service, so the Mindkind projects were set up around 3 years ago. We're a team of specialist mental health professionals, so we're made up of social workers, mental health professionals and researchers. I myself am a researcher. And when we set up Mindkind, our thoughts were that in order to reach the harder to reach, or what I like to call the fail to reach communities, we would be best to pick up our service and take our services to them. So our approach was a satellite model. We're based in 3 locations in Walsall, so Town Centre, Manor Farm being a location that we're based at, and Birchall's Leamore. Out of that work, we responded to the pandemic through a small amount of funding from the National Lottery. We also deliver a multitude of training. So as an organisation, we are the only West Midlands based organisation that provides 3 levels of mental health first aid training. And we reinvested all of that money back into our services. So with Paul's help and Resilient Communities, we started to work out of the old youth centre on Prophet Street. And what we've done there is we've piloted engagement activities and what we've thought may well work within that setting. So the way that we've done that is engage the local community through a series of events over the last year in order to gauge what people want and what they need. And what's really come out is that that area within Walsall is so ethnically diverse that actually we need to ensure that our services can provide a holistic amount of activities. So currently we provide physical activity, we provide Pilates, yoga, but then we also provide a COVID memorial garden, which we're setting up at the moment. We have a COVID support group, we have sewing classes. And so what our view is to create a holistic menu of services that really do drill down into health inequalities to support that area. We're all aware that that area is one that really lacks community assets. And so what we've done is worked with colleagues, and I often tap into the support of the community associations to understand what has worked before and the good practice around us in order to ensure that we can really provide a robust service quite quickly in that area. And so that's been our work over the last year, and our focus is really to ensure that the hub is ready for an opening this summer. So even though the building hasn't been in the best of states, as an understatement, I'm sure Paul will say, we've already have 6 classes running throughout the week. And what we're hoping is to ensure that we can support even more by getting the building into a standard that's ready to open for the community this summer and have a whole host of activities. So we're open 5 days a week. At the moment, we're open 3 days a week, and we have a waiting list for a number of our classes. So that shows you how much that area and that community actually really want this. They all remember the youth centre and what that brought to the area, and actually they've been looking for someone to come in and support to reopen the centre. Thank you.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Diana Southall. I work actually for Old Hall People's Partnership. We're based in the west of the borough, and what the girls have done so far, to be honest with you, has been a real good history of what we've all been through and gone through and continue to be doing. So I'm not going to go over what they've said because, but I'd like to reinforce some things truly in that the partnership working across the whole of the sector and Walsall Council and social care and inclusion has been amazing for me to be working in, because I've worked in community for well over 30 years. I can't remember how long I've been in it, and I've seen a lot of changes. But over the past 2 years, I feel absolutely delighted and proud, I have to say, to be working in community alongside all those bodies. And I do think by doing that and the partnership working and the network, we've provided an absolutely wonderful service, and that goes across the board to everybody. The network has grown. I know the gentleman at the end asked about the network and how he sees it growing, but when that network started, it was very small, and it has grown, and it has taken on new partners and developed working relationships. We, as organisations, as the ladies have said, we've all got different skills, and our communities are made up of different wants and needs. But from Old Hall People's Partnership side of the borough, we were able to work and provide, we have a furniture rehoming project. So during the pandemic, people in crises who needed that support, we were able to provide, but we spread that through our partners, and they were able to pick up the phone and say, have you got a settee? Have you got a table? We need to make these people's homes a home. We were able to do that because that's what we were able to provide. We have our own money and benefits advisor. He was able to support a lot of the organisations across the borough, and they had to pick up the phone again and ask for it, and that support was given. So the only thing really I'd like to say is a big thank you to everyone. I feel proud and happy to have been involved in what's been a dreadful time for everyone. We hit the ground running, we ran, we put it up, and that's our skill and ability. And I'd like to say thanks for giving us that opportunity. Thank you for investing in us. Thank you for recognising what we are able to do. And please, I hope that you'll continue to support our organisations.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you for your update and your outline. Can I have Gail now to give an intro? Last but least.
Good evening, thank you. I manage the Making Connections service at Manor Farm, which is the East Hub, and also the Older People Services as well. So I've been heavily involved with all the work that the other organisations here have spoken to you about today. So I thought I'd talk more from the perspective of being a person who answers the phone and somebody says, we need help. So today I've picked up the phone to 6 people who've said that to me, I need help. And I've left today being able to move those people forward, support them. I've sent out food parcels. I've arranged to go and purchase items to bedding for their children, things like that. We've made referrals and appointments for them to go to other services where they need specialist help. And there is such a huge, huge need for us to continue with this work. With the older person services, we've got a fantastic offering now. So we're open 5 days a week, and we think of it as a youth club for older people. So they can come anytime they want, and they just come and join in with us. So they can come to a morning activity, magical memories, or a coffee morning. They can stay for lunch. They can join in a craft activity in the afternoon. They can do the ukulele club. It's there for them if they want to chat to someone privately. We've got a space where we can go and talk to people. In addition to our befriending, and we're offering things online for those who can't come in, which we're going to continue offering because some people are reluctant to come in or can't come in. So that's really important. And what we need to try and do now is that model that we've got in our silver service to provide for younger people through Making Connections. So we can, not just children and young people, but older services is over 50s. So people under 50s. So there's somewhere for them to come and say, I need a chat. Can I join in with an activity? So that's where we're looking, I think. Is it okay to say that, Sue? That's what we're looking to do. And we need to expand that provision for younger people and also expand it into, you know, a longer timetable of the day. We run activities sort of 9 till 4 now, but we need to be running them into the evening. We need to have weekend activities as well. So that's my hope that that's what we'll do in the future.
Thank you, Gail. I would like to thank all of you and your organisation for all the work you've done over the years, especially in the pandemic. And it's really, really appreciated from all of us as members. I'd like to congratulate you for that and thank you for all your efforts and your commitment and your sacrifices. So thank you. I'm going to open it to members then I'm going to let Gary have a few minutes because Gary's been working quite passionately for a number of years. So open it to members for questions, and then I'm going to ask Gary and the other cabinet members to give their input.
Thank you, Chair. Just something that Gail touched upon there, Gail, when you said that it's a youth club for our senior citizens. But throughout the pandemic, and it's more for information purposes, really. I mean, I take it we obviously helped all sorts of people from all sorts of ages, from all sorts of life. It wasn't just the senior citizens in Warsaw that had that help.
The Making Connections was helping everybody of all ages. So I was talking about sort of my dual role because I look after the older persons as well. But throughout the pandemic, it was lots of online activities, lots of befriending, food parcels, shopping, prescription collection, signposting referrals to other organisations. It was a huge mix, as Ellen has spoken about. So the things you saw on her video there, that was happening in every community association across Warsaw. Everybody was involved to support across the ages.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say absolutely marvellous job, and you ought to all be very, very proud of yourselves. I'm so proud to say that I come from Warsaw for what every one of you has done on here. I've been into the Brown Hills Hub because that's my local area, and the people who've said in the Friendship Cafe that it's made an absolute marvellous difference to the lives. They felt isolated, and this brought them together. They made new friends. So all I can say is thank you very much to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Dittel.
Just going up on Gail's point, this is more of a suggestion, but you were saying you want to look into helping others. This is something I've kind of always asked community organisations if it's something they're willing to do, is have some activities where you can bring in senior citizens and the youth together, because I think our youth today could really do with learning lessons from the senior citizens, and especially with the challenges we're facing now. Now, some of these people have come out through war and everything else, and they've managed to be able to overcome these difficulties, and I think they will really be able to benefit from that. And coming from Mike, and I think others might be able to share this as well, coming from a background in my culture where, you know, elders have a really big important impact in the lives of the youngsters, and they're always involved and they're there to give you advice, and not just advice but learning from each other, so they could learn valuable skills from the seniors, whereas the seniors could learn a lot of technological skills from the youngsters as they're more tech savvy than us.
I think Gail is eager to answer that. Any of you could answer that.
Can I come in there? I think what you say is really important. I mean, we all work with young people, and we've got a very large programme working with young people. And during the pandemic, because schools were still operating, we ran a New Leaf school. So they're some of the most vulnerable and hard to reach young people, secondary school age. And we actually got them working on the hub. So they were cooking meals and preparing food parcels. And they were a bit reluctant at the beginning because loads of the mates were not having to go to school, but there was a requirement that they really came in. But once they got through the door and could see they were helping people, they bloomed. They really did blossom. And a lot of that work is carrying on. So we do a lot of work around sort of young people cooking sessions and family cooking sessions, and it just does really build those community links that we've got.
Thank you, Gail.
I wanted to reassure you that we are starting down that route. So even last week in the half-term holiday, we had an intergenerational craft session. If you go on our Facebook, you'll see some fantastic photos there, and it was absolutely lovely to be a part of. That's something we've done in all the school holidays recently, but we have been talking to different schools. So we have some school children coming in to dance and sing for us before too long. We've got some secondary school people coming in to talk about technology. And we've also got a local nursery that we're hoping will come in as well. So we are trying to get that intergenerational work happening. When I last spoke to schools sort of before the summer, they were saying, well, we don't know what's happening with COVID. And when we came back in September, then it was, we still don't know what's happening with COVID. We're only at the point now where schools are saying we can actually put some dates in the diaries and we can get that work going. But you're right, it is incredibly important. And it's lovely because the older people are giving the younger people life advice, whether they want it or not. And the younger people are sort of teaching the older people TikTok dances and things. So it is lovely to see. And we do need to do more.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Cooper who wants to ask a question.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you for all the hard work that you've all done. We spoke about loneliness and the impact that it has on mental health. With that in mind, I just wanted to ask, what can we do as a council to encourage residents, especially the more senior residents, to come back out, do you know what I mean, back into the community? Because I mean, for the younger ones, I mean, I know I've got an 18-year-old son, it was a challenge to keep them in. As soon as the restrictions are off, they're gone. But there is going to be certain residents who've got that use of sitting in on their own and not going out. How can we try and resolve that?
Got Jan and I've got somebody else, so I'll take Jan first to comment on that.
Thank you. I think we're doing a lot of work towards that because whilst we were doing the befriending course through COVID, we've not stopped. So we really know which people are still lonely and isolated and they still have that fear about coming out. So they get a phone call at least once a week. And what we do is we then go to doorsteps and start talking to them on the doorstep and trying to encourage them to come out like that. So there is still a lot of work that's going on as we call our resetting model. So I think, you know, and all communities are still doing that. So, and I think if I could just add a little bit onto that, in that, for me, I've always said, how have we identified lonely and isolated people in the past? But now I think since COVID, we will get neighbours that refer neighbours to us. So I think we're actually getting more of the lonely and isolated people now than we ever have. But as I say, the befriending calls are still taking place.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think, you know, we do have some residents that have jumped at the chance with accessing services. What it is for me is to make sure we've got a real diverse range of services for people to access, but also just offering that different way of working. So if someone is nervous, let's help them. Let's go with them to the session, have a couple of sessions with them there so they feel comfortable, you know, go through all the COVID guidance that we can put in place that makes them feel safe, and just help them to make those steps. And I think we've all done that around the table. So it's just a very diverse way, offer, and also a diverse way of dealing with people, is the answer to that, I think.
Thank you. Any other members want to make any comment or any observations? Councillor Gandham.
Thank you. So this is just going out across the board here. Just first of all, I'd like to say thank you for the job you guys are doing. Sterling job, and hats off to you for everything that you've done. On the basis of what I've heard so far, there's been a lot of talk about partnerships. Obviously, partnerships are very important in order to get a job done, people working together. Now, as a councillor, our role is to visit people on a regular basis at their doorsteps, at surgeries, etc. So I just want to know, what sort of engagement have you had with your local councillors in areas that need to be looked at a bit more? Like, has there been, you know, feedback from the local councillors? Because I'm aware that, you know, there's certain, you know, roles that you guys are carrying out here that our residents could do with, and we're not really that aware of what we can do. So just would like to hear from you. Thank you.
Jan's eager to answer that. Jan?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're still doing a lot along that line. And what we do is, if we feel that it is a councillor issue, we will refer over to a councillor. And my councillors are very proactive, excuse me, in the two areas that I work. I know I can phone them at any time and just ask the question or refer somebody over to them if there is a problem that I don't know. We don't know everything, so sometimes we go to somebody else to ask the question. So yeah, I would like to say that we use the councillors as partners as much as anybody else.
To come back on that, what I was referring to was, because we're sort of going to visit people on a regular basis, like we do street surgeries across our boroughs, just, you know, have you engaged with the councillors to say, is there anything that we can help you with? If there are any people in your ward that need sort of mental health service, or, you know, we've got these support sectors that can help people in your areas, that's what I was referring.
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate that I've got Councillor Craddock as my chair. So, you know, we have a very good relationship anyway. And yeah, if I felt somebody needed, again, referring, or if he needed anybody, he has actually referred a few people over to me. So again, I think it's already there. I'm not saying we couldn't do more, but I think there is already that link there.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'd like to just come back on that as well.
We call it, sorry, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just, in terms of Birchalls Leamore, we have worked really hard to engage with local councillors. So, for example, Councillor Ian Robertson has been quite involved in supporting our work. But I think there's certainly room for understanding the relationship between councillors and the work that we do. We've done a lot of doorstep work, and actually if councillors are on the front line speaking to residents anyway and can promote the service that we offer, it's really, really useful. So I think going forward for us, certainly over the last 6 months, we've really spent a lot of time understanding that relationship and utilising it to the benefit of residents, and we'll continue to do so. So it's great that you've mentioned that and highlighted that, because I think there's certainly a lot of partnership work that can happen there and needs to continue to happen. And I think Jan has shown that that model works really well, and is probably something that we are looking to do more of as well.
Thank you, Surya. Any further comments, observations? I've got people from the public here. I don't normally bring members of the public into the meeting, but it is resilient communities. So I'm going to make exception today and allow one question from some members of the public. I'll allow members first if they want to make any further question observation before I'll bring you in, Val. Is there any further question from members? Okay, well, just an exception because it is resilient communities. I'll let you ask the question.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask, where is Park Hall Community Centre based? Because the building it was in was bulldozed and houses are being built there. So where do we go now for our Park Hall Association? And who covers Chuckery in South Walsall?
Okay, I think it's fair the director answers that, because these good groups are just people representing their organizations. And I think if the director could answer that would be appropriate.
So yes, I can answer that, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards as well about further plans for Park Hall. Park Hall's still in operation. It's in the area. It is at the moment being looked at for some expansion work. So just as we were going into COVID, Park Hall moved from its current site, which was a massive issue for us. But it's still there, and it's going to grow very, very shortly.
Do you want to come back with a supplementary, Val, because you're nodding? Do you want to ask a supplementary?
Where is it based, please?
I can't remember the name of the street. I'll ask Sarah just to...
Sarah, do you want to come back?
Yeah, so it's in the heart of Park Hall by the shops. It's in their old nursery building. They've converted that now into a community venue, and that's the site.
In the hut by the side of the shops?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Rassab, I think I triggered you, sorry. Do you want to come in?
I think following on from what I've been a councillor for 4 years. I've never heard from the Parkwell Community Association. What do they actually do? How much funding do they get? What is their staff? Now you're telling us they're based in my ward, and you haven't even bothered telling us that they're based there. What is going on here?
Okay, Councillor Rassab, I think, yeah, because I don't want to divert away from the theme of the meeting. If you like, Paul or Gary, if you want to answer that, or you can directly respond to that to Councillor Rassab's question after the meeting, it is your choice and discretion.
I'm happy to pick up the wider issues that we've discussed this evening, then answer that at the end.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm gonna, because I've allowed members and I've allowed exceptional with regards to member public asking a question. I'm gonna ask the cabinet member for resilient communities, because he's done a grand job on this for a number of years, and I know he feels a lot of passion about this subject, to say a few words. Then I'll ask the other cabinet members to give their input. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to first of all come at this from a couple of angles. First of all is just a nod back to what has happened already. I want to talk a little bit about the activity that's currently in place, but also, as it's social care, talk to you a little bit about where our hopes and aspirations are sitting for the future relationship with our communities from a social care perspective. When we talk about what makes you proud, it's on our lanyards. We see the values that we're supposed to uphold. This makes you proud, and not just the people sitting in front of me, but everyone who chairs a local community association or has involvement with one at a local level, plus the myriad of neighbourhood community groups that are associated to our community associations. The neighbourhood street offer that we saw through the pandemic, that kindness, that neighbourliness, that didn't just happen. That required leadership. And that leadership wasn't here, not there, it was here. It was a leadership of a kind I wish I could bottle and celebrate and share at every opportunity, because they stood up when it mattered most. And I remember standing in that room at Pelser Village Centre, Councillor Coughlin, I think you were there, and others, when I said, I don't know what the hell we're dealing with. We're not sure ourselves where we're going to go, but I'm asking you to help. And every single person in this room who was there on that day stood up to be counted. They stood up for their communities. It wasn't political. This was about doing the right thing by the communities we serve. People who were vulnerable, people who could have gone on and did go on to lose their lives. Let's face the fact. People who were suddenly used to a certain way of life being closed behind their front door, with no access, some individuals, to local services whatsoever. None of their own network to actually help them provide shopping, food parcels, prescriptions, the neighbourhood chats that were, again, sprung up as a result of our community's effort. So that's what makes me proud. Because when we talked about a resilient communities model some time ago, and I know Councillor Hussain, you and I and others had lots of meetings about what that could look like, I didn't even think I would envisage it looking like what's developed since. Because what we're not doing now is sitting behind tables, having conversations with so-called important people and nothing happening. Because we have trusted our communities to do it on our behalf. And let that be the legacy for the future. So when we talk about our partner organisations, and this council as well, around commissioning, let our communities be the first port of call that we go to when we're asking for services to be delivered and the impact that they can have. And we've seen it and we've heard it discussed. I also want to talk about the agile way that they've worked, because not only were the community organisations going outside of their comfort zone from their traditional offer of activity-based provision, we then asked them to help us with COVID, with screening, lateral flow testing, COVID champions, again, delivered through our community associations. And when that need changed from helping our vulnerable through food provisions, those basic provisions, they stepped up again with a holiday activities programme, which again, as you know, has been extended throughout this year. And not just the holiday activities programme, but then helping us with the support for those people who are suffering and struggling financially through the hardship fund and the crisis fund. And as I said at council just recently, I know that a couple of the organisations here supported residents in my ward with white goods and other types of support when they needed it, even so much as electricity and gas and so on. So they have moved. They've not just moved the way they operate, but they've moved in a way that's conducive to what local need is asking us for. And that's what I'm passionate about. And I'm passionate about these individuals and the other groups that they work with. I also want to talk about the work that's emerging. And we know we are living in very, very different times. And COVID has taught us a lot, and there's a lot more we can learn. And yes, we may not have reached everybody, but what we are now aware of is that our communities are willing to be counted in a way that I've never seen before. And we're in a difficult time. We've seen what's happening overseas. Who knows where that's going or what impact that will have. But it's these individuals and the communities of staff that they work with and their volunteers and the people they're connected with, they're actually dealing with some of these situations. And we talk about social care. What can we do to help alleviate the pressures and demands on social care? And this is sometimes a battle I have with officers, because they have their opinion, they'll have their professional judgment. But actually, until we ask our communities what they're willing to deliver on our behalf, we'll never get that perfect solution. Things like keeping people safe in the home, slips, trips, falls assessments can be done in these organisations at a local level, taking it back to grassroots. I'm sure Councillor Pedley will come on to more about what the vision is for social care and the involvement of resident communities there. I also want to talk a little bit about the work we need to do with those neighbourhood groups that are probably flourishing in their own right, but need that additional support. And that's what the network is good at doing. So where we've got a group that's sprung up, or a group that wants to spring up with an activity or a way of engaging its community, as we've seen with the work by Mindkind, the network there are there to support them, give them the skills and the competencies and the strength to carry on and help them do it. The lady mentioned Chuckery and Palfrey, and there's some comments, Chuckery and Park Hall. And that is one group that is linked to the Community Association network. And it's fair to say that since they moved from its location, I wouldn't say they've struggled, but they've not been able to operate in a way that they would have previously attempted to do so. But they are getting support from the network and from the council to rebuild a model that works for its community and works with its community. What I will say is this: we can talk about we didn't know this or we didn't know that, but it's just as much as important that as councillors we engage with these groups, not the other way around. As a local active councillor, you should know what's going on your footprint, and this is no criticism of anybody, but you should. You should make it your business to find out, because throughout this pandemic, particularly in 2020, I provided briefing note after briefing note after briefing note to elected members, advising them of the activities that were taking place across Walsall and how they could provide and direct support to their local residents. And if people didn't choose to read that or acknowledge that, that's their issue. But I know it was sent out. I also know of hard-working individual councillors of all parties who stood up as well to be counted at in their local community and supported the community organisations, even going down to Sneed on a weekly basis, packing food parcels up for local people. And I know that's not applicable to everyone, because some of our councillors were also in the shielding category. It's not a criticism of elected members, but what I'm saying is we all have a duty to find out what is going on. And if we don't know, ask. I'm always willing to advise and help and to provide that necessary support. And I will ensure that you are contacted by my team in relation to, and the ward members for Paddock, in relation to the current situation with Park Hall Community Association. But let's not end on a negative point, because the real reason we're here this evening is to make social care members and the social care staff aware of what our community organisations are delivering for us and on our behalf, what more they are willing to offer and can do, and we've got to continue to give them the chance. And it isn't just about this council. I have the same conversations with Walsall Housing Group, with our social care and health partners, and also with the social value that we're getting from some of our businesses. Because now our community organisations in Walsall have never been as strong or in a position to help us moving forward. That's what makes me proud. And I personally, in a public forum, will thank you again for everything you have done, not just on behalf of the Walsall Council, but on behalf of Walsall people. And more importantly, I hope you're assured by my leadership, whilst I'm still here, that I will continue to work with you as a valuable partner of Walsall Council and the voluntary sector here in Walsall.
Thank you, Gary. Do you want members, would you like to have ask Gary any questions or any comments or anything you want to say before I move on to the next cabinet member?
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for the information. For your information, I don't think it takes 4 years to councillor to, he doesn't know what's going on in his area. It is the job of your portfolio as a portfolio holder, the people who are under your leadership, or to let the councillors know what's going on in the area. Not after 4 years, that is our job to go and find out. We do surgery, we do speak to people, but there is something not right in this, and this needs to be investigated, looked into, that these type of organizations are being set up, funding going in, and there is no accountability, and that accountability needs to be established.
Gary, you want to respond?
So I won't be investigating anything, because it's quite clear that there is a communication breakdown somewhere as to what's going on in that ward. What I will tell you is this: Park Hall has been in existence for many, many years, and I would hope that any elected member who represented that area would know it was in existence and knew what it actually offered. Now, clearly, some of the residents may disagree there, so there's something that we need to do. But ultimately, it is an independent organisation, so it has to be accountable for its own ends as well, and there is only so much that we can do as elected members, as well as the Community Association network. But they're sitting in front of me, and they will tell you that Park Hall is an active partner in the network. And actually, it might not do the great things in the biggest sense that the bigger organisations are doing, but actually it does provide a service to those who access it. But we'll make it our business to share that information with you, and also to get an updated position as to where we are with Park Hall and its base.
Thank you, Gary. Paul, you want to come in?
If I could, Chair, just to give the committee assurance in terms of governance and monitoring, we monitor all of our expenditure with the community associations on a regular basis. I think that's a light touch monitoring, but we do enough to be able to make sure that our governance arrangements are secure. They also have to report to the Charities Commission in terms of the work that they do. And more importantly, they also have to report to their communities in terms of the work that they do. So there is a governance arrangement around each of the organisations here.
Thank you, Paul. I don't normally allow this because it is an important subject. It is resident communities, and you are members of the public. And I think, Janet, you wanted to ask a question. Could you make it brief and precise, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wondered, listening to all the good work that the various groups have done during the pandemic, does Walsall have a local resilience forum, which would be the group responsible for coordinating in a crisis? And I just wonder how that works in relation to this portfolio, and how that is coordinating the response to particularly emergency needs in a community, which could happen again. And it would be helpful to know, and I think reassuring for us to know as members of the public, as I'm sure for members of this group, how that works in meeting
emergency needs in a time of crisis? Thank you.
I'm going to ask Gary to answer that. It'd be appropriate for Gary, because you'll
Thank
be
you,
better.
Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, there is a local resilience forum that meets, and actually throughout this pandemic, it met every single week, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a week, dependent on the need, but also on the changing circumstances with national government. Of course, we've talked a lot about the pandemic this evening, but there are other things that happen locally, but also at a borough-wide level, that the Resilience Forum pick up. So it's a voluntary sector partnership. It's partners from the health service, from the police. So all the key individuals who need to be around that table meet, and they will discuss what they need to do to respond to a local issue. So it does meet, and again, through Paul, I'll make sure that you get some information as to the types of issues that they've been discussing on a weekly basis. But as I said, throughout the pandemic, it met every single week, sometimes, as I said, daily. I know I joined the calls in the early part of the pandemic on a Tuesday morning. We were able to direct need. And just to come back, sorry, Chair, I know I should have done it earlier, really, but I'm recognising, obviously, that Chuckery, Paddock, Palfrey, St Matthews, those types of areas, they were in a slightly different situation, because although they had a hub during the pandemic, which was led by Accord, there was a lot of neighbourhood effort as well in those areas through Walsall Outreach and other organisations that provided support as well. And NASHDOM, which is also, as you will be aware, currently responding to the humanitarian crisis in the Ukraine. And again, they've done great work at that level in a very diverse and difficult community. And some of the work that we're currently scoping up in that area, particularly with young people, is that intergenerational offer in that area as well. But I'll make sure that that information gets to you about the Resilience Forum.
Thank you, Gary. Very much appreciated. Keir and I got Councillor Craddock. Can you make it brief? The next agenda item, Directorate needs to go, and we need to move on quickly. So can you make it brief?
Thank you, Chair. Just bringing it back to the agenda item this evening was actually entitled The Impact of Resilient Communities. And that was the impact on health and wellbeing and the impact on adult social care. First of all, what is well-being? Well, it's well noted and accepted as a definition of an overall feeling of happiness and satisfaction with life. What is social care? Well, it's addressing physical, psychological and social needs. As elected members, we often sit around these tables debating percentages, reports, assessments, fees, balance sheets, figures. How do we measure the impact of resilient communities? Well, how do we measure it? We measure it through Ron's story. The 86-year-old that was clearly grieving and feeling isolated and lonely following a tragic event in his life. That's the impact of resilient communities on adult social care. We're addressing people's physical, psychological and social need. Throughout this pandemic, the demand on adult social care rose by 400%. That's catastrophic percentages. And the impact that the resilient communities model have in supporting adult social care is not measurable through reports, is not measurable through percentages on spreadsheets, etc. It's measurable through the lived experience and the experience of residents such as Ron. We are addressing immediate need, but also a preventative need that prevents people from having to access further adult social care support and interventions along the line. What the pandemic has also done is allowed the resilient communities model to put down some firm foundations that in normal times would have probably taken 10 to 15 years to develop. Well, those foundations are well and truly set, and they're set in firm concrete, and we are now ready to build the bridge between our communities back in to supporting adult social care, the wider health and wellbeing support forums of our communities to help support and address that 400% increase in demand that the pandemic has resulted in. As Councillor Perry said, there's lots more work we can do when we've built that bridge. Home assessments, falls awareness, falls prevention, even financial assessments, giving people access to information as and when they need it regards adult social care provision. So the impact is unmeasurable on reports. We see it in our communities. What we want to do is ensure, and this is what these good people have done, is ensure that their community, their individuals that live in their areas have remained connected to the people and places that matter to them. And that is what adult social care is about as well. We are caring beyond the condition to make sure people's physical, psychological and social needs are met and exceeded, and their quality of life is continued to be enhanced. So we've got some great work to do. Those foundations have been set, and we will certainly be having further conversations with adult social care, resilient communities and the health and wellbeing portfolio holder about how we can all work together. But from me and all the adult social care team, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pedley. Councillor Craddock, I'm going to be very sorry. You've got 30 seconds because we are eager to move on to the next item because the director has to leave for another duty. So please, if you could sum it up in 30 seconds.
Chair, thank you for that. I didn't really have much to add from what Councillor Perry and Councillor Pedley have already talked about. I am just so proud of the community associations and what they've achieved during this time. If we hadn't had them on board, if we didn't have the resilient communities model, we would have been in serious trouble in Walsall generally, and our communities would have suffered very badly. So thank you to Gary and Kier for having the foresight, particularly Gary, obviously Kier wasn't there at the time, having the foresight to put this in place, but particularly to our community associations and all of your guests with you this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Councillor,
for the free contribution. I'm going to close this off now. I would like to thank our guests today. And there's, like Gary and Keir said, and all of us know that there's other community groups and organizations, places of worship, Sikh Seva, the mosques, other organizations working with yourself have done great work in the pandemic. I'd like to on record to thank them also. That they're not present here, but all of us know there's been great contribution from different organizations. But thank you again for your hard work and what you've done for us. We really appreciate it and hope to see you again in the future. Thank you. That's fine. Yeah. I'm going to move on eagerly because Geraint has to go to another commitment. We might be able to get a presentation, but if any members have questions for this next item, they can send it to Geraint through an email. So Geraint, can you give us a quick presentation on this item? And if you have to go, where we can address questions you through email.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain, and my apologies for having to leave. I assumed I'd be on earlier, so I didn't make adequate arrangements, so my apologies. You will recall at the last committee we presented you with a paper on primary care access and the things we're doing. You asked us to come back when we had specific data that could show GP appointments. Are you okay if I share my screen for a presentation?
Yes.
So hoping you can see my screen. As you may recall from last time, the CCG doesn't commission primary care directly. We commission through NHS England. So we've worked with our colleagues at NHS England to give you the data that you required. I'll start at the Black Country and West Birmingham level, but then I'll move specifically to Walsall data. So what you can see on this slide are GP appointments over the last 3 years across the Black Country. So the dotted line towards the top of the graph is the GP access prior to COVID. The second line, the more solid line underneath, shows what happened in 2020 when we started to run the vaccine programme, when your committee first started to look at primary care access, and you can see appointments dropped off quite significantly. The blue bars are access in the last 12 months. So what you can see is that since March 2021, we've managed to restore primary care access back to roughly where it was. And I'll show you the Walsall specifics in a moment. In addition to those routine GP appointments, what the graph on the right shows the number of GP appointments that were specifically delivering COVID vaccinations. So you can see at their peak, GPs across the Black Country were delivering around 150,000 vaccine appointments per month. And that started to drop off in the second half of 2021 when we got through the mass vaccination programme. In terms of Walsall specifically, again on the chart on the left, the dotted line is GP access prior to COVID in 2019. You can see that same drop off in the line below in 2020, but the blue chart representing the last 12 months and pretty much every month since February 2021. We've been able to deliver more GP appointments to the population of Walsall than we were doing prior to the pandemic. And we're currently up about 15% on that sort of baseline year. The table on the right, the first line that has the green numbers in shows you the additional appointments we've delivered per month compared to the pre-pandemic levels. The second set of green numbers towards the right shows a comparison from the height of the pandemic in 2020. So you can see we're delivering a lot more activity at the moment than we have previously. In terms of the GP appointment rate per 1,000 population, just so that again you can see how that relates to sort of different population levels. The blue line is the current delivery of GP appointments. So we're back up to delivering about 587 GP appointments per 1,000 population, whereas pre-pandemic that would have been down at the sort of 540 level. The chart on the right, I know you've had a focus on face-to-face appointments versus video consultation. The blue area of the graph shows the face-to-face. So we're delivering about 2/3 of appointments face-to-face and about 1/3 by video or telephone consultation. And that's been fairly consistent now through most of 2021. And so that's roughly where I would expect it to settle. As we discussed with the paper last month, we've really tried to focus the face-to-face appointments on those who are less conversant with digital technology or would really have a long-term condition and would want to see their GP face-to-face. A lot of the video consultations are more sort of one-off, urgent, and those who are happy to receive their consultation in that way. The other thing you'll probably be aware of in October 2021, the government announced another £250 million nationally to support GP practices meet demand over winter. In Walsall, we did two things with that. We put in an additional 14,000 appointments face-to-face through GPs, so that when individual GP practices were unable to see a patient on the same day, their local primary care network runs a service that allows an additional number of appointments in a location close to their GP practice. And that's enabled us to see patients on the day that otherwise would have had to wait. The other service we've put in place is a hub specifically to look for children under 5. There was a spike, you may recall, in respiratory illness in under 5s. It was meaning a lot of parents were taking their children to the urgent treatment centre or A&E. We now have the ability to provide access in the community through a GP service. That's been very successful and the feedback's positive, and we're going to extend that service now up until June so that we can give it a proper 6-month evaluation. Our feeling at this stage is it's been so successful that may be something we look to continue through the year and certainly be a regular feature of winter delivery. So I hope this gives you the numbers that you were looking for when we presented the report last month and gives you an assurance that we've both restored GP access to the pre-COVID levels, and indeed gone about 15% above that. And we've increased the proportion of those appointments that are face-to-face. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Garen, first of all, apologies. I know you've been waiting eagerly and I took the other items. So I'm going to allow 3 questions, please, quickly for Garen, because Garen has to leave to another commitment. So any members would like to ask a question, please do so. I'll make it very brief. I'll open it up now. Yeah, Garen, it's a quick question. It's 15% above pre-COVID levels. Is the money that was given by central government recently, has that helped deliver that? Because we're going 15% pre-COVID levels now, and because previously we all had a lot of complaints from residents and people to say they can't get an appointment with their GP and they're struggling to get a sort of face-to-face appointment. So you're saying it's gone back to pre-COVID levels, and do you reckon the resources has helped people for you to achieve that with the GPs?
The numbers I presented were up to December 2021. So that 15% is based on the number of GPs we had before the winter money came down. The additional money that's come has allowed that additional 14,000 appointments over the 3 months during January to March, where we traditionally see a spike in GPs. So that 14,000 appointments will be in addition to the 15% extra that we were delivering in the second half of last year. And I would expect us to be able to continue to be able to deliver that number of appointments going forward.
Thank you for that. My final question is that there were some surgeries that weren't hitting the targets previously when we had this meeting last time. Are them areas and them surgeries hitting the targets now? And are they seeing people, they're seeing more patients, and are they back on track now? Because there were a few surgeries that weren't doing that previously.
We've seen improvements in most surgeries. I think, as I said last time, there are 2 or 3 practices particularly we are working with that where we know they haven't restored access to the same levels. But I just referred to the sort of centralised GP hubs that our primary care networks were manning. What we're doing is we're targeting access at those areas where the originating practice hasn't been able to restore. But our focus is on getting every practice back to at least their pre-COVID levels, if not above.
Finally, are we seeing more face-to-face people coming to the surgery, or is it the same as previously?
It's gone up since about March 2021. So I said we're seeing about 2/3 of patients face-to-face and about 1/3 via telephone and video, and that's been stable now for about the last 6 to 9 months. So I think that's probably where it's settled. But I think what we've got much better at in the second half of the year is targeting the face-to-face at those who really want to see their GP. We have had quite good feedback from some sections of the community who actually have enjoyed the telephone and video. They've been able to get much faster access to prescriptions. They've got conditions where a chat with the GP has resolved their issue and enabled them to either get the referral or the medication they need. For those who don't want to access that route, don't have the digital ability, or simply want to continue to see face-to-face, we do have enough capacity to be able to do that. And that is how 2/3 of patients are experiencing their care.
Thank you, Garen. I've got, sorry, Councillor Cooper wants to ask you a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, because some GP surgeries are offering face-to-face appointments as discretionary of the doctors, so you have to meet certain requirements. What will we do to tackle this, to ensure that if you want a face-to-face appointment, you can, rather than having to ring up first, get through, which can take a very long time, then you get offered a video consultation, which you might not want, and then you have to go through the rigmarole again of ringing the next day at 8 o'clock to then try and book a GP face-to-face instead of being able to book it in the first instance.
So we've targeted some of the money that came down nationally to improve telephone systems because we know that was a major complaint for the patient, both in our direct consultations and in the working we did with Health Watch. So I hope you will start to see an improvement in telephone access into surgeries. We're also starting to look at centralised telephone access, so we're not reliant on the capacity in an individual practice, but there'll always be somebody to answer the phone. And we have the ability to do remote booking both into GP practices and into our hubs that will enable that to work. The telephone and video consultation, I think, has been helpful in prioritising those who really need to see a doctor and those that could be resolved elsewhere. What we were seeing in sort of the early stages and pre-COVID is a lot of GP appointments face-to-face were being taken up by people who just wanted a repeat prescription or who wanted quick advice. And I think for that group, then I think the telephone and video consultation has been a huge benefit. For those where a GP can't make a decision over the phone or the patient really wants to see the GP, I think you've seen a significant increase in that face-to-face contact over the last few months. If you're hearing differently, I'm happy to resolve that with individual surgeries. But I think if you go back to the 12 months to the height of the pandemic, when GP access was probably down about 20 to 30%, I think that was a much bigger issue. I think, but now we've both increased the number of GP consultations and the number seen face to face. We are seeing less complaints into the CCG for that effect. But I do accept there are a couple of practices we still need to work with, and we are doing that through our quality team.
Thank you, Garen. Garen, I know you have to leave now, so you can leave now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to carry on with this item with Kerry taking over. So any questions now, can you please address them to Kerry? Garen, thank you for your waiting, and thank you for answering our questions. And I will let members know if they've got any further questions, they can send them through email to Nikki and send them to you or directly to you. Thank you again, Garen. Kerry, I'll let you take over. Councillor Summer, you got a question?
I have, and it just continues from the same theme on the GPs, but more so on A&E, Kerry. And previously, before this committee, information was put before us that due to the lack of services the GPs were providing, A&E obviously was becoming overwhelmed. So has that sort of eased off? Or, I mean, where are we when it comes to sort of the A&E figures and the hours that one would expect to wait before they were seen by a doctor at the hospital, obviously?
So I can probably answer generically, and then I'll get them further detail from Geraint for you. So Walsall Manor has fared particularly well compared to regional and national comparators in relation to A&E performance. That's partly due to our good response at the back end of our hospital discharge pathway. So if we can release people at the through discharge, it means that the flow through the hospital is better, and therefore more people can be seen in A&E. And our ambulance offloads in Walsall have been significantly better than in other areas. But in relation to how demand has been impacted by capacity in GP practices, I don't know the answer to that. So I'll get Geraint to respond.
Councillor Samra, sorry, couldn't answer fully, but we'll get Geraint to answer your question on that side, not complete. Any members want to ask question from Kerry? Councillor.
I was just wondering, with the backlog and the demand, is there any way that we couldn't offer GP appointments of a weekend?
I know that certainly there was out of hours GP appointments put in place a little while ago. I don't know whether they extended into the weekend. They certainly extended into the evenings. And from memory, I think it did go into the weekends as well. But again, I'll get absolute clarity from Geraint and get back to you.
Any further questions? Thank Kerry for this. Sorry, because we had to change the item around because of the guests, and that was a bigger item. And unfortunately, I had to go to the commitment. So we'll try our best. Is there any further questions to Kerry before we move on to the next item? Everyone happy? Okay, thank you, Kerry. And I'm going to move on to item number 8, area of focus. And we've got a couple of items: Goscott Centre's report and update on Bloxham Hospital. Are members happy for us to have that in our final meeting of this municipal year on the 21st April? Everyone okay with that? Yeah, that's fine. So, yeah. Okay, date of next meeting is on the 21st of April, and that will be our final meeting, and we will be having them 2 items on there. I declare the meeting is closed now. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night. Thank you.